when hair color no longer feels like you? Have you ever stood in front of the mirror and thought, this used to work for me? The shade you once loved, the color that made you feel radiant and confident, suddenly feels off. Maybe it's too harsh, too dull, or simply doesn't reflect the woman you've become. You're not imagining it, and you're certainly not alone. After 60, everything about beauty evolves with us. Our skin tone softens, our hair texture changes, and our natural coloring loses a little of the contrast it once had. What looked vibrant in your 40s may now drain the life from your face. The challenge isn't that you've changed too much, it's that your hair color hasn't changed with you. I've heard this from countless women in my studio. One client, Nancy, told me she'd worn the same dark brunette shade for 25 years. But recently, every time she looked at photos, she felt like her hair was wearing her. Another woman, Susan, had gone platinum blonde hoping for a fresh, youthful lift, only to realize it made her skin look tired and her eyes less bright. Both women were doing what we've all been taught, chasing the idea of what once worked, instead of asking what works now. The truth is, your 60s aren't the end of your beauty story. They're the start of a new chapter, one that celebrates softness, warmth, and authenticity. You don't need a drastic makeover or expensive salon experiment to feel refreshed. Sometimes, it's just a matter of adjusting tone, a warmer hue here, a subtle highlight there, to bring your face back to life. In this video, we're diving into 3 hair colors that can unintentionally add years to your appearance, and the beautiful, flattering alternatives that do the opposite. We'll explore why certain shades no longer harmonize with mature skin, and how to choose colors that honor your grace and glow instead of competing with them. Because this isn't about pretending to be younger. It's about looking like your best self, the woman who's still curious, vibrant, and unapologetically beautiful in her own skin. Let's start by uncovering the first hair color that might be quietly aging your look, even if it once felt perfectly right. Hair color 1. Cold silver and ash gray. When grace turns too cool, there's something undeniably elegant about gray hair. It carries wisdom, strength, and an effortless sophistication that money can't buy. But not all grays are created equal, and that's where many women unknowingly get lost. One of the most common hair color pitfalls after 60 is going too cold, those icy, blue-toned silvers or flat ash grays that look stunning in a magazine photo but somehow feel harsh in real life. You know that mirror moment? You've just left the salon, the color looks modern and sleek, yet when you get home under natural light, it feels like all the warmth has been drained from your face. It's not your imagination. Cool gray tones can wash out mature skin, especially if your complexion has lost some of its natural rosiness. Over time, our skin tends to become a little more translucent, revealing cooler undertones underneath. Combine that with a steel-toned silver, and the result can be jarring, like all the softness has disappeared from your reflection. I once worked with a woman named Alina who proudly decided to embrace the gray. It was a powerful moment for her. She felt she was stepping into authenticity. But after a few months, she came back and said, "I don't feel powerful anymore. I feel invisible." The problem wasn't her decision to go gray. It was that her chosen shade, an icy silver, fought against her warm, peaky undertone. Her friends started asking if she was feeling okay, even though she'd never felt better. That's the subtle cruelty of undertone mismatch. It doesn't make you look older, it makes you look tired. From a stylist's perspective, cool silver can flatten your features because it reflects blue light rather than golden light. That bluish reflection emphasizes texture, fine lines, uneven skin tone, and under-eye shadows, while muting the natural glow that once came from your skin. It's not the gray that ages you, it's the temperature of the gray. So what's the fix? You don't need to abandon gray altogether. The key is finding the right tone, a warm silver or soft pearl gray that blends gentle beige or taupe undertones into the mix. This kind of gray still feels natural and sophisticated, but with dimension and life. Think of it as gray with sunlight in it, a shade that harmonizes with your complexion instead of competing against it. For women with medium or warm skin tones, a silver blended with champagne or soft sand hues can be incredibly flattering. It reflects golden light back onto the face, giving the illusion of smoother skin and brighter eyes. For cooler complexions, try smoky gray with lavender or beige lowlights instead of stark white. These soft transitions add depth and make hair look more expensive and modern. If you're naturally gray and want to refresh your look without full color, ask your stylist for glossing or toning treatments that add a bit of warmth and shine. A semi-transparent gloss can shift an overly cool gray into a luminous pewter, taking 10 years off your overall glow without a single harsh dye. And here's something that surprises many women: your wardrobe and makeup should evolve alongside your hair tone. Once you choose a warmer gray, swap harsh black tops for soft cream or dusty rose and pick blush tones that echo warmth. The combination of color harmony from head to toe can completely transform your reflection. Let me share one more image to keep in mind. Imagine sunlight filtering through silk curtains in the late afternoon, warm, diffused, gentle. That's what the right gray should feel like on you: radiant, dimensional, and alive. So if your current silver feels a bit icy, lifeless, or unflattering, it's not that you've aged, it's that your color has stopped evolving with you. Choose a tone that celebrates your softness, not one that erases it. Because gray can absolutely be glamorous, it just needs a touch of warmth to remind the world that you're not fading, you're glowing. Now, if cool silver tends to drain your complexion, the next shade we'll talk about can do something even trickier. It can overpower it entirely. Let's take a look at why jet black, though dramatic and classic, might secretly be working against your natural radiance. Hair color 2, jet black, when drama becomes too harsh. There was a time when jet black hair was the ultimate mark of elegance. It said bold, confident, sophisticated. For many of us, it was the signature look, the shade that made our features pop and gave us that mysterious allure. But as we move gracefully through our 60s, what once defined us can begin to feel a little too heavy, too sharp, almost like we're wearing the color instead of the color wearing us. Jet black has one undeniable strength: drama. And yet, that strength is exactly what turns against us over time. Dark shades rely on contrast to be striking, and when the natural pigment in our skin begins to soften, that contrast can quickly shift from flattering to harsh. Instead of illuminating the face, it starts to create shadows around the eyes, the jawline, and the corners of the mouth, exaggerating lines that used to disappear beneath softer light. I'll never forget Elaine, a 66-year-old artist who came into my studio last year. She had worn jet black hair her entire adult life. It was her armor, her way of saying, "I'm strong, I'm vibrant, I'm still me." But recently, every time she saw her reflection, she felt off. "I don't look tired," she told me, "but I look like I am." Her black hair, once glossy and empowering, was now drawing the light away from her face. The sparkle in her hazel eyes felt dimmer, and her skin, which had once glowed against that dark backdrop, now looked cooler and more muted. That's the tricky part. Black doesn't age you chronologically, it ages the light around you. Its depth pulls attention inward, flattening your features instead of reflecting life back onto them. And under natural daylight, pure black hair can appear even darker, so much so that it starts to feel disconnected from your skin tone altogether. Another misconception is that black hides grays better. It doesn't. In fact, it does the opposite. When silver strands grow in, the contrast against black is stark. Those first few grays appear like bright threads of light against a night sky. Instead of blending, they shout. And unless you're visiting your colorist every few weeks, that regrowth line becomes impossible to ignore. There's also the issue of texture. As we age, hair naturally becomes finer and more porous. Jet black dye, especially when it's flat and opaque, can make that delicate texture look dense and heavy, almost helmet-like. It removes movement and shine, making the hair look more like a solid block of color than a living, breathing texture that moves with you. So what should you do if you've always been a dark-haired woman at heart? The answer isn't abandoning depth, it's softening it. Think of this as turning the volume down from bold statement to elegant conversation. Shades like espresso brown, dark chocolate, or warm sable preserve the richness of dark hair but add warmth and dimension. These colors are deep enough to feel familiar yet gentle enough to flatter your changing skin tone. Here's one of my favorite real-world examples. When Elaine finally agreed to move from jet black to a soft espresso brown with honey undertones, her transformation was instant, not dramatic, but quietly powerful. The warm tones brought the glow back to her cheeks, and the lighter base softened her entire look. She walked out of the salon, smiled, and said, "I finally recognize myself again." If your skin has cooler undertones, you can keep a darker palette by trying neutral brown with subtle ash lowlights. It balances without washing you out. For warmer skin, add a touch of caramel or bronze balayage around the face. These fine ribbons of warmth act like soft focus filters, lifting the complexion without changing your overall color identity. For women who are hesitant about a full color shift, consider asking your stylist for toning glaze or dimensional lowlights. These services are low commitment but high impact, adding softness and reflective depth that breaks up the uniform harshness of black. The effect is subtle, but it makes an incredible difference in photos. Your features will look brighter, your eyes clearer, and your hair alive again. And here's a little insider tip from color theory. When your hair color reflects golden or neutral light rather than absorbing it, your skin naturally appears smoother and more hydrated. That's why soft dark browns are universally flattering. They return the light to your face. If you've been coloring your hair black for decades, I understand it's not just a shade, it's an identity. But just as your style, your wisdom, and your spirit have evolved, your color deserves to evolve with you. Because true confidence isn't about clinging to what once worked, it's about refining what still feels right. When drama turns too harsh, gentleness becomes power. And as we move from deep, bold blacks to the opposite extreme, the icy platinum and superlight blondes that promise youth, we'll uncover why brightness, when overdone, can be just as aging as darkness. Let's talk about how to bring back light without losing harmony. Hair color 3, platinum and light blonde, when bright becomes draining. There's something timelessly glamorous about blonde hair. For decades, it's been the color of sunshine, light, and playfulness, a shade that whispers youth and vitality. So it's no surprise that many women, upon reaching their 60s, think, maybe going lighter will lift my face, brighten my look, and make me feel youthful again. And in theory, that sounds beautiful. But in reality, ultralight blonde and platinum tones often have the opposite effect. Here's why. As our skin matures, it naturally loses some of the color and warmth it once had. The undertone shifts slightly. What used to be golden and radiant becomes softer, sometimes cooler or even more translucent. When that delicate canvas meets a hair color that's too pale or icy, instead of creating brightness, it creates emptiness. The face appears washed out, the eyes less defined, and the overall harmony disappears. I remember working with a client named Janice, 68, graceful, full of energy, the kind of woman who lights up a room before she even speaks. She'd always been blonde, but over time her stylist kept taking her lighter, chasing that youthful sparkle. Eventually, she ended up nearly platinum. I thought I'd feel refreshed, she told me, but I'd just feel tired. When she looked at her reflection, she couldn't figure out what was off. It wasn't the cut, and it wasn't the style, it was the color. That stark platinum was reflecting harsh blue light onto her skin, making it appear thinner and emphasizing every fine line around her mouth and eyes. The problem isn't blonde itself, it's brightness without balance. Platinum, white, and ultralight blondes can strip away contrast from the face, leaving your features undefined. In photography, this is called flattening the frame. In real life, it's what happens when your hair and your skin merge into the same tone. Without shadow or warmth, your natural expression fades. From a stylist's perspective, extreme light blonde also brings another issue: damage and texture. To achieve that pale tone, hair must go through heavy bleaching. After 60, when strands are already finer and more fragile, this process can make them brittle and dry. That brittle texture doesn't just feel rough, it also looks rough, especially under light. Even the healthiest platinum shade can turn from polished to frizzy in a matter of weeks, especially if not maintained with toners or hydrating treatments. So what's the alternative if you love being blonde? It's about softening the light, not dimming it. The most youthful blondes for women over 60 are those with warmth, depth, and dimension. Shades like honey blonde, buttery beige, or soft golden wheat bring luminosity back to your complexion without draining your color. They reflect warm light, the kind that mimics natural sunlight on the skin, creating that healthy, radiant glow that looks effortless. For women with cooler undertones, a neutral champagne or creamy beige blonde works beautifully. These shades keep the brightness but add subtle warmth that flatters mature skin. You'll notice that your eyes look clearer, your cheeks rosier, and your overall face softer, not pale, not ghostly, just luminous and alive. If you've gone too light and don't want a drastic change, ask your stylist for low-light blending. This technique adds slightly darker strands throughout your blonde, restoring contrast and making the color look natural again. A touch of caramel or golden beige lowlights can make an enormous difference. Suddenly, your hair moves again, your face looks more defined, and your reflection feels like you. Here's another secret most stylists never tell clients. It's not just the color, it's the tone balance between hair and wardrobe. Light blondes pair best with clothes that carry warmth. Think soft apricot, warm top, coral, or sage. If you pair icy hair with cool, pale fabrics, your skin can look even more washed out. But when you choose clothes that mirror warmth, everything lights up again. When Janice softened her platinum into a honey beige blend, the transformation was subtle but profound. She didn't look younger, she looked present. Her hair had depth, her eyes sparkled again, and her laughter somehow felt louder. "I thought blonde was my fountain of youth," she said with a smile, "but it turns out warmth was. The truth is, you don't need to chase brightness to look radiant. You just need balance. A shade that respects your skin's natural undertone will always look fresher than one that fights against it. So, if you've been feeling a little faded despite your light blonde, it may not be you, it's your color working too hard. Let it rest, soften the edges, and bring back the sunshine that feels real, not artificial." And now that we've uncovered the 3 shades that can quietly add years to your appearance, let's turn the page to the beautiful side of the spectrum. The tones that truly revive your face, your confidence, and your glow. Up next, we'll explore a shade that's been quietly transforming women's reflections for decades. Caramel brown, the warm, forgiving tone that flatters every woman over 60. Hair color #4, caramel brown, warmth that revives the face. Have you ever noticed how some women just glow, not because of makeup or lighting, but because their hair seems to bring their skin to life? That's the quiet magic of caramel brown. A recent survey by the American Board of Certified Hair Colorists found that over 47% of stylists consider warm mid-tone browns, especially caramel, the most rejuvenating color family for women over 60. Why? Because it restores temperature balance. As we age, our skin tone loses warmth, while hair often remains too dark or cool. Caramel adds back that missing light, like a soft sunrise for your complexion. I remember meeting Laura, 64, during a workshop in Santa Fe. She'd been coloring her hair deep brown for decades. When I asked how she felt about her color, she said, "I love it in photos from 10 years ago, but now it just feels like it belongs to someone else." That's when we switched her to a honey caramel tone with delicate gold threads near her face. Her reaction? Pure shock, in the best way. "My cheeks look lifted," she said, "and my husband asked if I changed my skincare routine." That's the thing, caramel brown doesn't just warm your hair, it warms you. Here's what makes it work scientifically. Caramel reflects more yellow-red wavelengths, which counterbalance cooler undertones in mature skin. It minimizes sallowness and softens fine lines. If you have golden or olive skin, try honey caramel. If you're fair or pink-toned, beige caramel will harmonize better, no brassiness. Just healthy glow. Another expert tip, the halo highlight. Adding subtle caramel ribbons around the crown and temples draws light to the eyes, giving the illusion of lifted features. Think of it as contouring, but with hair color. Let me ask you, when was the last time you changed your hair color formula? If it's been more than 5 years, chances are your tone hasn't evolved with your complexion. Wouldn't it be refreshing to try something that doesn't just cover gray, but illuminates it? Caramel tones also age gracefully. Unlike harsh, dark dyes that expose gray roots, caramel embraces them. As your silver strands appear, they blend into soft champagne tones. That means fewer salon visits and a more natural transition. One of my favorite transformations happened to a group of 4 best friends in Atlanta who decided to go caramel together before their 40th high school reunion. They each had different undertones, one fair, one medium, one deep, one olive. But the results? Every single one looked radiant. Their group photo was proof, 4 shades of caramel, one shared glow. So, if you've been searching for a color that looks less like a mask and more like a mirror of who you are, caramel brown might just be it. Imagine standing near a window at golden hour, soft amber light wrapping around your face. That's how caramel feels. Warm, forgiving, alive. Next, we'll explore a color that takes that warmth deeper, with richness, glow, and a whisper of copper that moves like light itself. Hazelnut brown with copper radiance. Hair color 5. Hazelnut brown with copper glow, rich, soft, and radiant. If caramel brown feels like morning light, hazelnut brown with copper undertones is the warmth of sunset, elegant, layered, and unforgettable. According to Wella Professional's 2024 color analysis, hazelnut copper blends are now the top requested tone among clients aged 55-70 in the U.S. This isn't coincidence, it's because this hue does something others can't. It balances depth with luminosity. Let's break that down visually. Picture the soft gradient inside an actual hazelnut, brown, golden, a little red. That's the kind of multidimensional tone that flatters mature hair. Add copper light, and you've got reflection, not shine that blinds, but glow that breathes. A true story, 3 sisters, ages 58, 62, and 67, came into my studio last fall. Each had different coloring, one pale with blue eyes, one olive, one dark-skinned. We gave them each the same base, hazelnut brown, but tailored their copper differently. For the fair sister, soft rose copper glaze. For the olive, burnt amber ribbons. For the deep complexion, rich golden copper along the ends. When they walked out, they didn't match, but they belonged together. "We look like autumn," one said. That's exactly how hazelnut copper works. It creates harmony between skin and hair. From a technical perspective, copper reflects longer light wavelengths, enhancing radiance in mature skin and giving hair texture more movement. It tricks the eye into seeing thickness even on fine hair. And because it naturally reflects warm light, it gives the illusion of smoother skin. If you're worried about maintenance, don't be. As this color fades, it softens into golden brown, never brassy, never flat. A gloss refresh every 8 weeks keeps it luminous. Here's a quick diagnostic question for you. When you stand in daylight, do you feel your hair looks dull or shadowy? If yes, you might be missing mid-tone reflectivity, something hazelnut and copper instantly restore. And here's a fun comparison. Cool ash browns often absorb light, while hazelnut tones scatter it. The result? Livelier photos, warmer eyes. And that elusive, "you look well-rested" compliment we all love hearing. A client of mine, who's a choir director in her 70s, once told me, "I thought color at my age was about hiding gray. Now I realize it's about amplifying light." That's what this tone does. It doesn't hide, it highlights life. So if caramel brown is comfort, hazelnut with copper is vitality, the kind that feels expensive, confident, and completely effortless. And if you're ready to push your self-expression just a little further, the next shade is for you, one that blends creativity with confidence. Plum and burgundy accents. Hair color 6, plum and burgundy accents, subtle boldness, modern confidence. Have you ever felt that spark, that little voice that says, "I still want to surprise myself"? For many women, that moment arrives around 60. The kids are grown, the rules are gone, and finally, it's time to play again, even if it's just through color. That's where plum and burgundy accents come in. They're not about rebellion. They're about reinvention. According to a 2023 survey by L'Oreal Professional, 1 in 5 women over 60 have experimented with red or violet tones in the past 2 years, the highest number ever recorded. Why? Because these hues offer what neutrals can't: personality without pretense. Unlike bright purple or red, modern plum and burgundy are muted jewel tones. They blend seamlessly into brown, hazelnut, or gray bases, creating depth that feels elegant, not eccentric. Imagine this, a soft brunette base kissed with wine red reflections that appear only under evening light. It's subtle like velvet catching candlelight. You don't see color, you see energy. Now let's do a little comparison. A pure neutral brown absorbs 90% of light, that's why it can look flat in photos. Add a touch of plum, and reflectivity increases by 25%. That's why your eyes suddenly look brighter and your skin glows. Science meets art, and the result is confidence. Let me tell you about one of my favorite transformations. At a community event in Chicago, I met Linda, a retired saxophone player. She'd worn the same espresso brown shade for decades. "I'm invisible in crowds," she laughed. We added plum lowlights through the mid-lengths, barely noticeable indoors. But that evening, under warm lights, they shimmered like embers. She called me 2 weeks later. "Strangers keep complimenting my hair at the grocery store. I think it's because I finally look like I sound." That's what I love about this shade, it brings your identity forward. If you're unsure where to start, ask your stylist for semi-permanent glossing in deep wine or muted plum. It fades beautifully and doesn't require bleaching. For gray hair, burgundy ribbons look divine. They mingle with silver strands, giving that metallic cherry glow that feels chic, not flashy. Think about this, do you want to look polished or memorable? Because plum and burgundy tones do both, they let you express confidence without saying a word. The key is placement. Keep the color concentrated around the crown and under layers so it flashes only when you move. It's like your hair has a secret it shares only with the light. And remember, confidence doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's a quiet glimmer, a hidden hue, a soft reflection that says, "I've lived, I've changed, and I still love who I'm becoming." So whether you crave softness, richness, or artistry, the perfect color after 60 isn't about looking younger. It's about reflecting the light you've earned. Now, let's tie it all together, because beyond shades and undertones, there's one truth every woman over 60 deserves to hear. Your beauty never expired, it just evolved. Confidence over color. Maybe the real secret to looking radiant after 60 was never about chasing youth, but about rediscovering light. Not the kind you buy in a bottle, but the kind that reflects from within when your hair, your skin, and your spirit finally align. We've seen how color can change everything, not just the mirror, but how you feel in front of it. Cold silver, jet black, icy blonde, those tones once made sense. They told the story of who you were then. But now, caramel warmth, hazelnut radiance, even a touch of plum or burgundy, these are not just shades. They are choices that say, I still care, I still shine. According to a 2024 AARP Confidence report, 7 out of 10 women over 60 say updating their hair tone helped them feel more vibrant, not because it made them younger, but because it made them visible again. That's the point, visibility. You deserve to be seen in color that celebrates the woman you are now. So when you look in the mirror tomorrow, ask yourself, does your hair still match your energy? Or has it stayed the same while you've grown softer, wiser, freer? Change doesn't have to be drastic. Sometimes it's as gentle as adding light near your face, softening the edges, or blending warmth into your natural silver. It's not about losing who you were, it's about meeting yourself again. In the light of who you've become, I want you to remember this. Confidence isn't found in color, it's reflected through it. When your shade feels right, you don't need validation. You radiate it. So tell me in the comments which tone spoke to you today. Will you go for the golden calm of caramel, the rich depth of hazelnut, or the quiet confidence of plum? Whatever you choose, let it tell your story, not your age, but your evolution, because your beauty didn't fade. It transformed. And maybe this new color is just your reflection finally catching up to your light.